Can you hear me? Can you hear me? I can't hear them.
Morning, everyone. Whew, y'all, it's been a morning. For some reason, I just started a kitchen renovation with a 3-year-old, a 1-year-old, and a dog. So uh, here we are. But I made it. just 1 minute to spare. Awesome. Well, we are expecting some more people, so I'll give everyone a chance to join. And we'll kick things off probably around 8:05. Just make sure everyone has the link. I got a couple of emails this morning asking for the link, so um, we'll give everyone a chance to join. All right. Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for being here. I chose perhaps the worst day in the entire world to have this meeting as I had a kitchen renovation start this morning and had to get everyone out the door, including the dog, who is now sitting next to me at work because we didn't make a plan for her because, that we stop thinking about the dog when you've got kids. So anyway, thankfully I have an office that is has a door on it and I can just bring her with me. So we're off to a great start. But yeah, thank you all so much for being here. For my new people who are taking the training for the first time, I hope that you can see, we've got this great cohort of people in this room. And so because there are so many new, well, there's new people, and then there's for my new people, all the returning people are new faces to you guys. And so in the chat, if you guys could all just briefly say your name, what school you teach at, and how many years you've been doing intro to engineering, and then maybe what parish you're in, just in case your school name isn't obvious. That way people can kind of connect, like if you're in the New Orleans area, if you're in the Hammond area, so that my new people can kind of see who their people are in their region. So if you could type in the chat, rather than maybe like going around and having everyone introduce yourselves, put your name, your school slash parish, and then maybe like how many years you've been teaching intro to engineering. That would be super helpful, and we'll just kick that off right there. I'll give everyone just a few minutes to do that. So if you're new or even if you're returning, just look in the chat. I think everyone should be able to see all the chat answers to be able to find maybe someone else who's in your geographic area. And then I'll also try to make those connections as people talk. And if you do share out something during the time, the first time that you talk, if you could, again, just like introduce yourself, put a name to a face for everyone, and share a little bit about yourself. While that's happening, I will go ahead and just share my screen really quickly. That's not what I want. I guess I don't have a specific engineering one. Anyway, I was going to pull up a map to show you guys where everyone is, but we do have really big pockets of intro to engineering in Orleans, Jefferson Parish, Calcasieu, and obviously EBR, and then Tangipahoa. I'd say those are probably the 5 parishes where we have the most number of schools. So if you've just joined, everyone's putting in their name, their school and or parish in case your school name isn't familiar or obvious, and then how many years you've been teaching intro so that we can try to find some connections or some people in your area. So as you can see, we've got about 22 people on the call, and then there's about 5 to 8 who emailed me and said they had conflicts. So it's a group of 30 people. And one of the coolest things is that when people join the program, they stay in the program. They love the program. They want to participate. And I think that one of the things that makes it that way is not because I've put together anything like remarkable or different, but because of the community and the cohort and the being able to share, and then having you guys tell me what needs updating, what's wrong, what did you do differently or better in the class. And so that's what I really want to focus on today is I'm going to share just a few updates, and then I'm going to turn it over to some questions to the group to kind of get you guys to share out, especially with our new people, kind of some ways that um, participated and maybe modified the class. So the first thing, um, if you weren't able to join our welcome presentation, so we did have a welcome presentation that was like just general pathways overview for our Summer Training Institute. So if you're not participating in a new training this summer, I don't think you even got the email or were alerted to the fact that there was a welcome presentation because it was really intended for new people. But I just want to just very quickly, I'm going to scroll through it so you guys can see the topics, and then I'm going to give y'all the links to the video just in case you want to do it. So it kind of went over the basics of the Kane Center program, how the Kane Center functions. And I wanted to highlight here, we are really pushing and trying to incorporate the word workforce development into all of our language. This particular class, Intro to Engineering, does not have an industry-based credential aligned to it. But it's kind of more of the career exploration. So it is absolutely workforce aligned in the sense that, like, hey, it's saying, hey, here are all these different careers that you can have in engineering, and maybe even some conversations around engineering adjacent fields like electrician or mechanic, right? And to just kind of, what is the difference in an electrician and an electrical engineer? And maybe this class helps students say, oh, well, I thought I wanted to be an electrical engineer, but turns out like I really like the actual wiring and the physical, building of the circuits as opposed to the design of the circuits. We have our growth, our foundations. Obviously, you guys know this is between Jumpstart and Pathways. We're going to talk about LTP because I know this was something we introduced new last year, and it's made some improvements for this year. We do have our career accelerators. So I think this piece is new, that we have two new dual enrollment courses. They're ISDS courses, Information System Decision Sciences, special topics. So they're not core. They don't count as a gen ed here at LSU. They're just a special topics course, but they do align to the cloud practitioner foundational and then the AI practitioner. So you would take special topics ISDS 29.99 in the fall, and then take ISDS 29.99 again in the spring. So special topics courses, you can actually take up to 9 hours in a special topics with the same course code. And so these are two special topics courses that both have credential alignment, and these are both advanced credentials. So for those of you who are at my public schools, you've got that advanced credential alignment. And they did, I saw actually in one of these red tabs, I don't know which one it is because I have so many open, but this is the Bessie, is it this one? No. This is the Bessie agenda items for their meetings that are happening this week. And on one of these, they are requesting to add the various Amazon Computer Programming 1 and 2 as a course sequence. So sorry, I can't find it. It's somewhere here. Not worth looking for it. But anyway, the point is that you can, if you have a computer science certified teacher, you can actually teach this as computer science as a foreign language 1 and 2. You can also teach it as computer programming Amazon Web Services 1 and 2. There's all sorts of flexibility in how you offer the course in your high school, but I just wanted to flag those. I do not think that it is too late to go to the dual enrollment training for this. So if that's something you're interested in, email me ASAP, because while it's not too late, it's getting very close to being too late. We did also share, which I think we were able to share this last time as well, that we have Intro to Computational Thinking starting with next year's freshmen. So the freshmen 27-28. Intro to Computational Thinking counts as a core TOPS University math credit, and data manipulation and analysis counts as a core TOPS University science credit. Both of those have gotten the stamp of approval from LDOE in terms of our curriculum. So our curriculum is able to be used under these course codes. And then this is just talking a little bit more deeply about the computer science credit. If you're dual enrollment, we're going to be talking a lot about this in the second half of the meeting. If you're not dual enrollment, you will be allowed to leave. and not participate unless you just want to listen in, but we'll go into this a lot more in the second half. Financial literacy, we do have dual enrollment for that. Also not too late. So financial literacy is a graduation requirement now for students. So if your school's looking for a solution, we do have a dual enrollment course for that. QSM grant should open soon. This says 26, 20, 25, 26. It should say 26, 27. So please make sure that you apply for this. It'll open in mid-July if you're a past QSM
Very good.
participant. Sorry?
Sorry.
Oh, no worries. Hey, Matt. If you're a past participant, you are probably on an email listserv. If not, I will make sure that everyone gets an email letting you know when it's open. If you've never written a grant before, they have grant writing workshops and resources. I wrote one of the sample QSM grants. Like there's different samples of how to write a QSM grant, so I'm very aware of the process as well, and I'm happy to review or provide input on your grants. But great way to get $2,000 non-consumables. Okay, so this would be like if you wanted to buy Arduinos, if you wanted to buy your K'NEX kits or Lego kits for this class. They'll pay for like hot glue guns and like a small amount of hot glue. But they don't want things like popsicle sticks and straws and things that are just like one-time use, but like a glue gun with the glue sticks, that would be considered a non-consumable. Code.org is another partner that we have, and we're so happy you're here. Okay, so I just wanted to just very high level touch on those things. So if any of that sparked your interest, I will be sharing out the recording of the meeting, and then obviously you can just email me or text me if you have questions. So that was that. You'll also see I mentioned workforce. So we've got workforce alignment just kind of throughout the pages now in terms of like workforce aligned STEM curriculum, industry-based credential opportunities. So you're going to see a lot of language changing around the pathways to highlight something that was kind of always there. We didn't necessarily use the word workforce development, and we didn't always highlight that aspect of our program, but it's always been there. So now we're just taking a more intentional approach to highlighting that and talking about it. And I think if you pay attention at all to the educational space nationwide, you'll see that that's really a trending word. We'll see if it stays. But I think that people are starting to question like, hey, like, why am I getting this degree, particularly in higher ed, or why am I getting this high school diploma? And so the solution is kind of this workforce pipeline and saying, okay, like we can't just get you your math, your English, your science. We have to also get you some sort of credential, some sort of workforce experience, or some sort of workforce exposure, so that you can understand like some of the options that are available to you. So our class 100% already fit that, in that it is a complete career exposure to engineering. Like I said, it does not have a specific industry-based credential because we're not trying to get the kids a single skill. We're trying to expose them to all the different careers. The skill that we're trying to teach them is critical thinking, problem solving, working on teams, those kinds of things. And as of right now, there are no industry-based credentials approved by Louisiana. And when I say approved, that means your school gets money and there's, funding opportunities and school performance points and all that. So there's no credential that's been approved and validated on the Louisiana list. That being said, because workforce is such a big driver of educational initiatives, I'm going to try to provide you guys a list of various credentials that I think could be of value to your students, if not necessarily valued in the eyes of the state, because I think that those are things that they could put on their resumes, and those are going to be in the shape of like self-paced asynchronous online certificates that they can maybe add a badge to their LinkedIn or add it to their resume, because there are a ton of soft skill, durable skill, however you want to call it, a lot of credentials out there that exist that are free, open source, and it might be something that y'all could consider kind of weaving in and spreading throughout the course, especially in that fall semester time. So that's like broadly kind of a shift in the messaging that we've had around the STEM pathways. The other thing is the Louisiana training. Well, let me stop there and see if anyone has any questions. Oh man, there's so many of y'all here. I have to have two screens. That's exciting. All right, cool. Okay, so the Louisiana training platform, most of you guys are at least familiar with it. Oops, share my screen. So we have made quite a bit of improvements and we're still working on more improvements to it, but we're really building it in so that everything is kind of right at your fingertips as far as all of the resources. Now, some of these do just like link directly to the Google Drive with the individual forms, but we're trying to build stuff in really as the platform. So some things you'll see are just kind of a copy of the folder structure that's in Google Drive, and then others are more embedded into the actual page. We did update some of the pretest questions and thus some of the quiz questions. So if have been given the quizzes or the pretests outside of LTP, we have made changes. They are all reflected in the Google Drive as well. But one of the things I'd like to move everyone towards is having everyone take the quizzes and submit the lab reports in LTP. So I know we had some, grandfathering in because some people have been doing this for so long that you've really built out your own resources and have everything built out on your Google Classroom. But I'd really like to start to transition more people to using the platform, particularly for the quiz and submitting of the lab reports. I know some of the other pieces can be a little clunky and a little tricky, so I get that, and I want to try to respect that. If you're doing paper engineering notebooks, taking 20 minutes to have the kids scan them and take pictures just to load them into a platform seems awfully silly. If you're doing your work ethic grading and you've kind of got an Excel sheet where you just can easily do that, again, I get it. But I do think that the quizzes and the lab reports are really critical, and we have updated all of the quizzes in the platform. So as a teacher, you have a toggle button and you can toggle on or off any of the assignments. So, if you're using the platform for the bare minimum, maybe you just have the Unit 1 overview, you have the lab report or safety, or in this case, there's a presentation and a lab report, but all the other ones, it's just one. Let me go to a discipline one. So you've got the lab report or presentation. So maybe you have toggled on the overview, the lab report and presentation, and the quiz. And so when the students log in, those would be the only three things that they would see. It does also have, the video recording of the presentation. So if you do have students who are absent and they miss the lecture, rather than you having to re-record it, you can show them the presentation. So you could toggle that on as well. That would also be a great resource to maybe toggle on after you've presented because these slides are meant for you to present, but after you've presented it, you can make that available for the kids to review and to have access to after the fact. So basically, that's the main thing I wanted to say. I feel like we have made quite a lot of progress and update on this to try to make it more user-friendly and to really build out the structure of the course so that y'all would hopefully not have to do a whole lot of extra work. Questions or comments about Louisiana Training Platform? You guys will all have access to it about a week-ish before school starts. Once we load the sections in, it just becomes more of a pain to like keep track of changes and like to keep track of a change in the college readiness portal and then to then like also make the change here. So we try to wait until close to the last minute to load them in. But from the teacher standpoint, like it hasn't changed a whole lot. So a lot of the stuff is still um, where uh, where you found them and should be familiar enough if something kind of moved a little bit. I don't know exactly what if like one button moved from here to there. But generally, if you've been using it, it should be roughly the same. We've just been working on them to try to make it less clicks to get to the grading of the assignments.
Um, I, I
Yeah,
have
so
a
you
small
should
question,
have
Vanessa.
access to that uh, about a week before school. We'll send you guys well, if you participated last year, you have a username and password. If you're new this year, then I gave you your username and password, which you can reset. So everyone should already have access to it. But if you've forgotten your username or your password, just let me know.
I have a quick question, Vanessa.
Chat. Is it possible to publish assignments and videos only for some students? So we have individual publishability for at the quiz level, but not at the content level. So like if it's just something that's open for them to submit, or it's just something for them to watch. So like if you wanted to do what I described, which was, a student was missing, so you wanted to show them the presentation video, you would have to show this to everybody. There's not an option to just show it to individual students. There is here, so you can manage quizzes and manage exams. So on the quiz level, you can individually like activate or inactivate quizzes, but not on the individual assignment level. Other questions? If you are not, so the question, is it a requirement to use the platform? If you are dual enrollment, it is a requirement to use the platform to submit lab reports and take quizzes as a minimum, but you are encouraged to use it to its full and utmost capacity. If you are not doing it for dual enrollment and you are new, then you are very strongly, highly encouraged to use it. And if you are a legacy teacher who taught it before the platform was available, then we're kind of like grandfathering y'all in and allowing y'all to not you don't have to use the platform if you you know want to continue kind of using it in the system that you've built. Because I know this is the really truly the hardest part about designing a class that everyone can use is it's like some people are Google, some people are Canvas, some people are OneDrive, like everyone has their own platforms. So then what platform do you use to be able to make it easily accessible to everyone? And so our initial solution was Google Drive. And to be perfectly honest, we are running into more and more issues with Google Drive that schools are just completely locking things down to only allow access to to documents on their own domain. So some of these, that's why some of these I'm having to share from the teacher standpoint to your personal drives when it's a restricted access. The rest of them, we're trying to make them like all the student facing material is all completely open to anyone on the internet. So it shouldn't require any sort of login, just so that then you don't run into those domain issues. Sorry, I'm catching up on the questions. Are the quizzes the same ones in Google Drive? Yes. So all of the quizzes that are in the platform here are all the same ones that are in Google Drive, and I've made updates in both places. So all of the quiz questions got a refresh this year. So please make sure you don't use the quizzes from last year. So if you made copies and you have them on your desktop, or if you used paper copies and you printed those out, they all like generally stayed the same, but throughout the year, I got feedback from various teachers that some questions were really confusing and misworded. And then I just generally kind of took a look at them and thought and tried to make maybe some of the questions that were just really specific questions that were maybe only mentioned on like one bullet point on one slide. I tried to take those out as much as possible and make them a little bit more of a holistic view. Can't promise that I did that for all of them, but that was something that I tried to do to kind of, make it more generally about like conveyor belts in general, as opposed to some like really super, um, you know, uh, I think in that one, in that particular, the conveyor belt might have had a, I don't know, there was some like weird question that I swapped out. So anyway, they all got a deep dive look over the spring semester, and they should all be refreshed, and they are the same ones that are in Google Drive. Time frame in which the students would gain access to the platform. So that's actually, I'm going to save that question and answer the rest of the questions, and then I'm going to come back to that because that's going to do it. Is there a lockdown browser? Yes, there is a lockdown browser. So when they're taking the quiz, it is locked down and they can't open any other tabs. Okay, perfect. Other questions before I get into the platform question? Okay, perfect. So the platform question. So when will everyone get access? So the answer is a little bit different if you're dual enrollment versus non-dual enrollment in terms of the process and procedures. But there's really two parallel processes that happen. One is access to the platform, and one is enrollment in dual enrollment. And they're kind of separate. The reason for that is because particularly for my schools that teach for a full year, you can only do dual enrollment in a single semester. Like you can only be enrolled in college either in the fall or in the spring. And so all of you guys have a spring enrollment. I do not have access to your dual enrollment roster until like February 1st. That is entirely too late for you to have access to the Louisiana training platform to have your kids, be working on units 1, 2, and 3 and to be submitting work. And so all of you guys, if you're teaching in a 4x4 block schedule in the fall, or you are teaching in a full year format, dual enrollment or non-dual enrollment. Okay, so if you start and you see your kids starting August 5th or whatever the date is, then I'm going to ask you to have your students register through college-readiness.lsu.edu. You will be getting emails from me with all of the instructions, and you're going to have your kids register. When your kids register, that will prompt a manual process for us to import those students into the classes. Okay, so what we don't want is we don't want the students to self-enroll because then they're going to pick the wrong class. There's intro to engineering, there's engineering design, there's other course names, like they will enroll in random stuff. So we've locked it so that people cannot self-enroll in the high school courses on LTP. So your students will register one time. They will register in college-readiness.lsu.edu. Once they've done that and you have approved them, then we will download those rosters, import them into LTP, and assign them to your section. So I would say like start to finish, it's probably like a week, right? Because you're going to have to get your students to register. You're going to have to go in, review the roster, make sure, the right kids signed up for the right class. Because again, in college readiness, there's lots of different engineering classes and confusing names if you're teaching at a school that has like multiple pathways. Looking at you, Woodlawn and Liberty, and a little bit of Hammond. When you all have, 4 and 5 classes, that principles of engineering, intro to engineering, engineering design, like especially in the intro class, like they're usually freshmen. They don't necessarily know the name. So the students will register in college readiness and enroll in the course. Okay, that takes a day or two of like it's a 5-minute process, but it'll take a day or two for you to get all your kids in. You will take a day or two to review all of your rosters and make sure, and then you approve each of the students or disapprove or not approve, right? Then once they're flagged as approved, then we import them into Louisiana Training Platform and we send you an email with their usernames and temporary passwords. So like I said, I'd say start to finish about start to finish about a week, depending on how fast you can get your students enrolled and approved. So, yep. And then, there's always like the lingering people. So basically, once we get past like the bulk enrollment that first week, then we usually check about every 24 hours. Like in the afternoons, I'll run a report to say, okay, how many new people do I have who are approved? And then let me import them into LTP. So I'd say within 24 to 48 hours, anyone who gets added after that first bulk import will get added. If you are dual enrollment, you will have another process, which is to have your students register in the Board of Regents Apply DE portal. And I'll save that for the dual enrollment section conversation after, so I don't confuse anyone. So as far as y'all are concerned, there's a single registration place for your students. That's college-readiness.lsu.edu. We will import them into LTP and give you their usernames and temporary passwords, which they can then go in and reset. And then their primary thing that they're logging into each day would be LTP, right? Once they've registered in college readiness, they don't really interact with that system again. It's kind of once at the beginning of the year, possibly again in January if you're on a 4x4 block. But the college-readiness is kind of a one-time first of the year registration portal. And then there's the actual course platform, which is the Louisiana Training Platform that they will interact with more regularly. Again, for dual enrollment, there is a Moodle page, but we are not going to be really using the Moodle page just because of all the MFA issues and things that they've put in place that have made it so hard for schools to access and participate. So try to be safe, which I get. But when you have no cell phones in school and you require kids to answer a phone call every time they want to log in, it just makes it a little bit prohibitively complicated. So, and that's why we are enrolling the kids to make sure that, there's no random people joining the courses into the platform. Did that answer the question about the time frame? So, and don't worry, you guys will be getting emails from stempathways@lsu.edu, which is me. You'll be getting emails with detailed links, detailed instructions, links to instructional slide decks that'll have like step-by-step procedure. But if you've been with us for some of you guys, I'm looking at you, Haley. I think she was an OG from 2016, so this is like year 10. Okay. Jean, you weren't far behind, and we got Valerie. We got a lot of people on here. So I feel like every year or two, the process is. Oh, Kim, you were another one. A lot of you guys have seen. I don't know. I think we're up to like 5 or 6 different platforms. But finally, I think this is the 3rd year in a row that we're using the college-readiness.lsu.edu. So if you've been using it, it's like nothing has changed in that platform. So it should be really familiar, really easy for the students to enroll and register in terms of that piece of it. So we're really pleased with that. And hopefully you guys will get that familiarity that we all know and love when you don't have to learn yet another training or yet another platform. So, all right, questions about that? Great. Yeah. And it's also easier for me because then I can like reuse my instructional slide decks that I spend a lot of time making year to year. So that's also exciting to me. Cool. Okay. Well, I think that was most of what I wanted to share. I think that the class has not changed fundamentally. The quizzes have been refreshed. the platform is, I think, in much better shape than it was last year. And we've got this emphasis on workforce. Those are the main changes that I wanted to highlight. So now I'm going to turn it over to all those OGs that I just called out, as well as those who've been with the program for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and ask you guys to share a little bit with the group and with particularly our new people a little bit about the class. So I guess just a starting conversation question is, what is your favorite part about teaching this class? And then what is like the thing that you dread? Maybe we don't use the word dread. Maybe we say that you like the least, or that you least look forward to in the mornings when it comes to teaching this class. So if any of my veteran teachers wants to go, we'll try to get, 4 to 5 people to answer each of the questions. And if you are not able to be off mute because you're somewhere and you want to put it in the chat, that's fine too. So
Hey guys, I just started it off. My favorite is watching the
Haley, I
kids.
see you trying to come off mute, I think.
Oh, can you not
But
hear
I still
me?
can't hear you. Let's hear her.
Okay, everybody else can hear me.
Yes, I can hear her.
Uh-oh, wait, I can't hear. Hold on. Wait. Why is it not working?
Hey, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can't hear you yet. Hold on. All right, can you say something, Haley?
Hey,
Oh, no, hold on. Why is it not working? All right, try now, Haley.
hey guys.
Oh, I can hear you. Okay, thanks.
Good. All right. What I look forward to, I am the only pre-engineering teacher at my school, so watching them grow year to year is really rewarding. And when they go off to college and then I have them come back to my classroom and speak, I really enjoy that, the growth of it all. And what I least look forward to is probably grading lab reports. It's,
Do you have any strategies that you can share that makes that a little bit less awful?
I think probably breaking it up to intro and the different parts of the lab report and grading as you go, and giving even within the class, like your intros due at this time, methods, due this time. So it's just discussion as you go, not like all at the end for them too, giving that, breaking it up and making it not so cumbersome.
Can I say something?
Yeah, perfect. Jump right in, Cynthia.
For my lab reports, I make it a certain format, like they have to have their discipline at the top, then it has to say lab report, and the subtitles would be like your group. Then you're going to put your project, your objective, your restraints, photos. Even if you don't have photos, if there's something that happened, you have to say photos, front, right, isometric, and then summary. I take points off if those aren't on there. So I automatically have those in the exact same format, and then they can add whatever they want at that point. So
Yeah.
it makes it a little easier and a point system, if that helps.
Yeah, for sure. So Cynthia is non-dual enrollment, so there's a little bit of flexibility there in how the lab report is set up. And even if you are a dual enrollment, if you need to make, a tiny tweak to the format, like if you want to be very explicit and say, like, you must say discipline, you must have, this subheading, you must have, this XYZ, like that is your prerogative to update the template, right, to like make it your own. So everything that we have in the class is definitely like, this is your starting point, this is the gist, but I rely on y'all's classroom expertise and y'all to, take it how, to make it your own while still staying true to the spirit of what we're trying to grade for and what we're trying to accomplish in the class. So Yeah, I love that, especially if you've got freshmen. Like sometimes they need a little bit more of that intentionality and explicit ask than maybe some seniors would. All right.
Can I jump in with a little
Yeah.
bit? Um, my class has kind of turned into this weird dumping ground for kids. Like they just throw them in there, but I don't let that deter the kids from thriving. A lot of them really like the hands-on, so they struggle a little bit on the first half with the technical part of it. But once we get into the specific disciplines, they love going in the lab and building things. If I can, I try to do everything as a they're going to build it and then we work on the lab report piece by piece together. Because I find if I'm like, hey guys, here's your rubric, here is exactly what I'm looking for, they still try to give me an entire lab report in 6 sentences, and that's not going to fly. Um, what I also like to do is before we get into the project, when we're in that prototyping phase, I make them submit a hand drawing to me, and that part counts in the rubric as the here's a picture of your prototype, because a lot of them won't submit a picture or anything in the lab report itself. So I'll just take that and do it as a grade on the side and then incorporate it all together. Because there's no sense in them losing points on something when I know they've done it beforehand.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And then also like attaching that to say like, okay, now let's look, maybe like, let's look at the rubric, right? And see how it's here. So, I'm going to include it here, but we can also like work to encourage them towards that like critical reading of the rubric so that when they get to college and it's in the rubric, you know, they're not saying, well, but I have it here, but I didn't include it in the right. And it's like, yeah, but yeah. So it's kind of, our job here is to help guide them and shape them and make them better, not to penalize them and crush their souls and their grades. So I love that solution to say like, hey, you've got it, here it is, I'm going to incorporate it, but also trying to like take it to the next level and maybe guide them towards like next time, or maybe by the last lab report, they've included it in there. So good. All right. And then I see Valerie came off mute, and Valerie's another OG from like 2018. So,
I just wanted to jump in there and say that I do agree. I hate grading the lab reports too, but normally once I make myself do them, it doesn't take me long. And even though I've been doing this forever, I still use the rubric to grade my lab reports. And I still teach the students how to make their lab reports using the rubric, because I let them know, hey, this is how I'm grading this. This is what should be on here. This is what should not be on here. It's just on the rubric. Just go by the rubric. It's not that difficult. But to kind of get off the subject of the lab report, I think classroom management is a big deal, and supplies. I also like to make my kids, and I still use the book for the lab book.
mhm.
I still use the lab book, so I like to make my kids draw out and list out their plans before I give them their supplies. I've learned that helps a lot. Otherwise, if I just give them the supplies, they're not going to take the time to think through it at all. They're just going to jump right in it, and normally it works out better if they take some time and make some plans and kind of have a plan, even though I really stress to them, I don't expect your design to go exactly as your initial plan. That's not how things ever work, but you do need a starting point.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and I cannot overemphasize what Valerie just shared, that like the second you give your kids supplies, any sort of brainstorming or pausing to think goes out the window. So like definitely having some intentional time set aside. Like it doesn't have to be long, like 10-15 minutes, to say like you don't get any supplies until you have like something halfway decent drawn on this paper, and it's not just like, a little stick figure, but like they've really, really thought about it. So again, this is something where you can scaffold a lot at the beginning and then hopefully train them. Maybe you set a timer for 7 minutes. In 7 minutes, it's silent. Everyone's just working independently on their ideas. Then for the next 7 minutes, they get together with their teams, and it's kind of like an elevator, pitch where each person says like, well, here's my idea and here's my design,
Yep.
and then that's your 15 minutes, right? And then later you can, maybe not scaffold it quite so much, and they can have that activity on their own and that initiative on their own if you establish kind of that at the beginning.
Vanessa, I take the engineering notebook,
Mhm.
and besides bell ringers and other information for each discipline, they have to write their project down, their full group name, and stuff like I was mentioning.
Yeah.
But they have to sketch it in their engineering notebook, and then they have to pitch it to me. That's how I do it.
Yeah.
And once I sign off, then you're allowed to get your materials.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Having, not just checking the box, but actually putting in the work to do that brainstorm and then having it approved by the teacher. Or this is also where, like, if you have, depending on your class size, depending on your, the students that you have, you could have on each team, there could be a project manager. So especially if you've got maybe like bigger teams, right? Like teams of 4, I would consider to be pretty big teams. Maybe 3 people are the designers and 1 person's like a project manager, and they can pitch their ideas to the project manager who has to sign off on it. Or there can be, if you have an odd number of teams or odd number of students, maybe you could have 1 classroom project manager, right? Who's like part of a team, but for the brainstorming part, maybe plays the role of like an overall classroom project manager to hear the different ideas. All sorts of different strategies there, but the key part is don't give them supplies until you're absolutely ready for them to start building, because otherwise they can't just have them sitting on the desk without building. So, yeah, I see in the comments, individual sketch of the picture before going into the unit, and then group design must be signed off before getting materials. Yeah, so we're hearing a lot of the same things. All right, this is, does anyone want to share? We'll have one more person do, something that you really enjoy about the class. I feel like we've been a little light on things we enjoy. We've been real heavy on this like lab report situation. So something that you like, and then maybe something that's a challenge. And then I see a good question in the chat. So does one last person want to take that question?
Vanessa,
Oh,
good
go
morning,
ahead.
everybody. My name is Ronald Coates, and last semester was my first semester actually teaching the class. So nothing went right, but luckily for me, they were very, very nice about everything. However, they were upperclassmen. They were juniors, seniors, and I had a few sophomores, and didn't have any trouble with the sophomores or whatever. They kind of just blended in with the juniors. And to tell you the truth, they really thought out a lot of the things that I didn't think of ahead of time. So they kind of beat me to the chase. And I kind of sat down at the very beginning, hey, this is your class. Anything that makes it a little better. So when we started talking about things, it never failed. Somebody's parent worked in one of the plants. Somebody was related to somebody that did something. And so that worked out. Even having the presentations. Yes, it was hard to get them all the stuff together and get people there for a presentation with multiple classes, but it worked out great because they really wanted to be there. They wanted to learn. And when the kids would start interacting, even the ones that you didn't think were going to interact, of course, you never know how it's going to go. And, for me, it went fine. Also, the problems that would arise were pretty creative, and because they were upperclassmen. And so I got to be a little more careful with the amount of supplies, especially when they're using the glue guns and the amount of supplies, because they're already thinking about the projects when you're talking about them, and they're done. I know with the little guys or with the younger students, they're going to have to take that walk through it. But with the older students, they're doing multiple things at a time, and they can kind of synthesize things much quicker. And they sometimes outsmarted me, or they brought materials from home for something. And so I was really impressed with that kind of stuff. Hey, I'm gonna get that, or gonna have that. But no, it did have its problems. And I think that jumping on the problems at the beginning, as soon as they happen, make sure that it doesn't happen again. But also, I really didn't know these guys too much, and they were the seniors were absolutely amazing to kind of as much trouble as they caused every once in a while. They were that much better, kind of helping you along. So, well, I'm back again this year, so obviously it
We didn't
wasn't
scare
terrible.
you off.
It didn't scare me off, and it was actually quite enjoyable. Using the platform should be more beneficial. I know that we are our school is getting away from having the Google AI turned on all the time, and taking a lot of the AI off of there, because to tell you the truth, the students are just pointing and clicking. They don't even know how to use the address bar correctly, or how to, hey, how do I save that website when I need it again? And it's like, what do you mean? You know, they don't know some of the basics. And so don't ever assume that they know everything about the platform that they're using. Even their Google Classroom, they don't know how to turn off the notifications. They don't know how to make sure that they are not overwhelmed by all their stuff. So, you know, always incorporating those other things that you would think were really, it would just take you just glancing blow at it and address it, but you got to kind of throw it out there.
Yeah,
That's it.
for sure. Thank you for that. Yeah, I think the key thing that I want to just highlight from that is setting your classroom expectations early, taking the time at the beginning that, like RJ said, like if you nip stuff in the bud, then it's like, it's not, I won't say it's smooth sailing, but like if you let things go and you let things go, then it's just, it's hard, very hard to recover from. So just, and it's hard, you know, especially when it's your first year, you don't know what you want your classroom policies and procedures to be. And I think that that's one thing that any of these teachers would tell you, is that like the first year is the hardest because you don't know what you're doing, everything's new, and you're working on what your policies and procedures are going to be. And then every time you do a project, you'll be like, okay, next time I'm going to do this instead of what I did. And it works better. And, you know, every year it gets a little bit easier and a little bit smoother. So, all right, I want to turn to a question in the chat about recommendation of physical versus virtual engineering notebook, and kind of, I see some people have taken some time to answer that in the chat, but just pros and cons of virtual versus physical, and then a question about pictures and how everyone kind of handles getting pictures when or cameras. So any thoughts on that?
Vanessa,
Yeah.
this is Jean. I can jump in on some of that. For me, I've always used the paper-based, except for the year that we had to go hybrid. I prefer doing a paper-based engineering notebook because it allows me to be able to work with the students a lot on organization and structure of content as they're going through on some of that as well. I come from a lot of different backgrounds, but having come into education first through traditional Montessori, I always look for, this is what I want my end goal for the students. And then when I'm trying to build in everything, especially into that beginning part of the year, it is taking and breaking down those steps of this is the expectation and this is how we take and start. So yes, with things like their entries into their engineering notebooks, I'm spending time working with them on this is how you want to have it set up. So there is a rubric with that. There is me showing them. And I give ready feedback. I also prefer it as an engineering notebook paper copy because I do get a lot of stuff that's all computer based and stuff like that as well. It gives me the opportunity that I'm able to take and make connections and pull things over visually on the page for the students and stuff like that too. So yes, I do take the time to do all that in the beginning with students. By the end of the year, as we come into the spring semester, if I've really put a lot of emphasis on that in the beginning, and that's with all the classes that I teach for engineering, then by spring semester, when typically I am beyond busy because I also have FIRST robotics teams that I coach and stuff like that. And so we're ramping up that way. I have all the legwork done with the students. And so when I'm in class, I really get to enjoy the projects that we're working on and the new ideas that they come up with and stuff. Yes, I have tons of projects from throughout the years that students can look at. But for me, sorry. I'm at school, so our bells are still on. For me, it's that what I really enjoy is getting to see how there's always variation and change that happens with it. So when it comes to them being able to input and put stuff in, yes, I can use my my teacher Chromebook to take pictures with. By the time we get into spring semester, a lot of students just take the stuff home with them. And since they're able to have computers, because we're dual enrollment officially in the spring, they can do that on their computers and upload it and stuff that way as well.
Yeah, and I've seen some comments about pictures of like the QSM grant. Like that's a great place to ask, like obviously only for public and charter schools, so my private schools, I'm sorry, but you know, you can pick up just a easy little digital camera. But that's a great thing that QSM could fund. I mean, you'd want it to be built up, like you'd want maybe more than just digital cameras, but it's certainly a great thing to ask for because that is the kind of thing that they're looking for. And so I think, is anyone using a virtual notebook and want to share how that's working out for you and maybe why you chose to do a virtual? Is everyone using paper? Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised. So like, I mean, I also like when I taught this class and, you know, I was at the high school for 4 years while we were like piloting these courses. I always did paper just because it was nice. Like I had, they each had a pile, like each of my sections had a pile. They would walk in, they'd grab their notebook, they'd go sit down, they'd start writing in it. I could also like look over their shoulder and like see what they were doing. I could also tell them like, no Chromebooks out today. Like this is a no Chromebook day, so that then they're like focused on what we're actually doing instead of watching, you know, ASMR crunching chip videos. And so by having, if I had virtual notebooks, they could be like, well, no, but I have to have my Chromebook to be able to write in my notebook. And you're like, okay, but you're not actually writing in your notebook. You're watching a cat video because I can see the cat on your screen, you know? So I also just kind of preferred the physical notebooks. They never left the classroom. So the kids could never be like, I don't have my notebook, you can't grade it, and then I could also go walk around and grade them while I was also like talking to them about their projects. So I would like go to a group, talk to them about their project. I'd be like, all right, everyone give me your notebooks. I'd like flip them all open to the pages of their brainstorming. I'd be like, all right, tell me about your brainstorming. And I'd look at them while I'm like engaging with them and talking to them. So that's also a benefit, I feel like, to that versus the virtual notebook. So, which is also why it's in LTP as a thing, but it's if you're doing paper, like it's really hard to like scan and make pictures and copies and post them all. So that would just be something you would grade, on a rubric, or on the rubric. And then if you're dual enrollment, I do have a spreadsheet where you would be loading those grades. And again, I'll go over the grading for the dual enrollment in the second half of the class. And then if you're non-dual enrollment, that's just something that would be basically, I don't want to call it participation because it's not really participation, it's actual work, but it would not be something that I would want to see the work product, or that I would need to see the work product for. We're trying to get everyone to show the lab reports and the quizzes as the like main work product. I did also pop in the chat, there was a question about sharing sample entries of the notebook. So if any of my veteran teachers have examples that they could share of the actual, like what a unit might look like for the class, that would be awesome. And then I did share the guided notes that we have. So this is something that Rebecca Guyot shared or created, I think in 2020, and gave permission to share with everyone. So it just kind of goes through each of the slide decks, and it's got like a fill in the blank kind of style. This is a great way to take notes. And then it's also, some people, instead of using it as a note-taking thing, particularly with your upperclassmen, maybe like at that point they should know how to just like be able to listen and take their own notes, because that's definitely, like, I promise you this type of resource does not exist in college, where it's like a fill in the blank note-taking sheet. So if you're teaching upperclassmen, I would encourage you to like coach the kids on how to take good notes just listening. And then you can use this maybe like as a study guide at the end, as a review thing. But again, I mean, in college, they're not really, I mean, this was not something that I created as part of the college course. This was something that a high school teacher created, and that we are sharing as a resource because, you are doing it in a high school setting, but, just depending on the age group of your kids, just consider how you would use some of these resources. So, all right, awesome. Okay, so I want my veteran teachers to share what is their favorite project and why, and then what is your least favorite project and why. So you can share either your favorite or your least favorite or both. So I'll give you guys a second to think about it. And then let me
You
know.
want me to go?
Yeah, come on,
first?
Bob.
All right. Yeah, I actually have two favorite projects. The first one is the chemical engineering, where they're actually injecting glasses into gelatin, and the kids have a lot of fun with that. My second one is as a replacement project for chemical engineering, where the students are making soap. Now that goes through some of the chemical engineering processes, such as heating, cooling, and it has a complete process to go through. So I think it better illustrates the chemical engineering process than making sandwiches. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I love that you highlighted kind of like an alternative version to a project while still staying true to the idea, right? So for my new people, we haven't gotten to the chemical engineering projects yet, but it's a process flow diagram, and we have the kids analyze a recipe. And one of the challenges we've always faced with chemical engineering is kind of trying to make it not chemistry and make it kind of chemical engineering focused, but chemical engineering by nature is large scale industrial, like that is, one of the differences of doing like lab chemistry versus chemical engineering. But Bob came up with a great project for that of making soap and going through the process of making soap in his classroom. So that's a great alternative to having the kids kind of do their own recipe. Especially, I think Bob has smaller class sizes of like 2 to 5 students. So it's actually something that he can do in the classroom too, as opposed to having the kids do the recipe piece at home. So yeah, I like that. And then, like you said, it goes through the unit operations.
It has another benefit too. The students then take the soap home and give it to their mother as a gift.
Yeah. So you kind of do it maybe around Christmas time or last project of the year close to Mother's Day. So cool. All right, Abbas, I see your hand raised to share a favorite.
Yeah,
Or, I'm sorry, hold on,
least
wait, hold on, Abbas. Bob, I don't know if you wanted to share. Did you have a least favorite or one you didn't particularly enjoy? You're on mute. You're on mute. Oh yeah, there you go. We couldn't hear you. Oh,
And not that I can think of.
all right. What a good politically correct answer. Sorry. So when I come visit the students, I always ask them what is like your least favorite and favorite. And I always say, like, you're not going to hurt my feelings, because I've literally at this point visited, I don't know how many classrooms. And I always ask the students that question. And I always get like some kids, it's their favorite, some kids, it's their least favorite. And I'm like, that's the purpose of this class. Like, you're not supposed to necessarily like every project. Some of them you're gonna be like, this is tedious and boring. Some of them you're gonna be like, this is hard. I didn't like this. And other ones you're gonna be like, wow, that was really cool. So, yeah. All right. Abbas?
Yeah, I can't speak for the students. The students they ranged really wildly on like what their favorites were. Like some kids hated electrical and some kids loved it. So I don't know. But at least for me, the favorites were probably like the mechanical and the civil engineering ones. Just having the different options of what types of things to build and seeing the variety there is cool. At least for me, the least favorite is the petroleum, just because it's like the grossest to set up, I guess. I think, well, for me, I messed it up on my first day for the petroleum. And so I ended up with a bunch of like gelatin on the floor when I was making it at home, or like not even set gelatin. So like it was, yeah. I think I still have like some gelatin on my clothes as a result of it.
Oh no. Oh
Yeah.
no.
But
I
the
am
civil,
working on building out a new petroleum one that I think Matt shared it with me, maybe, of like the rocks and pebbles and something. I don't know. Someone shared it with me and I haven't gotten around to updating
okay.
it to
Yeah,
build.
that'd be cool. I think the kids really enjoyed the petroleum, to
And
be
that's the
honest.
problem, is it's like
Yeah.
it's so cool, but it
Yeah.
is like so messy. And if you have like 60 kids, it's also like not really super possible.
Yeah.
So you could do like a demonstration versus every kid trying it if you've got a
That's
big class,
probably
but
that's
that's
probably
not
gonna
as
be
much.
the route, because I
Yeah, it's
set
just not
up
as much fun.
yeah, I think I set up 14 Jello containers,
Wow.
and I did that twice, one
Yeah.
for the first day and then one for the like official trial. So it took
Yeah.
I think it took like 45 minutes to set up. It was that the second time around was a lot easier, but the kids seemed to enjoy it, and the civil and mechanical where the kids had to build like cranks for the conveyor belts, those were definitely my
Yeah.
favorites.
Yeah. Cool.
I think that my kids probably hate the Arduino boards the most.
It's a love it or
But
hate it. The kid,
yeah,
that's a very divisive project, chemical or electrical and computer science.
and
Yeah.
with the petroleum, I used to try to make the Jello, but then I just said forget that because I would always forget, and then I just started buying the little Jello cups.
Oh,
And yep, you can buy them from the grocery store. I mean, they're small, they don't have a whole lot of space, but they're big enough for the project. So I
well,
started
that's
buying those
awesome.
little, yeah, and they're only like a couple dollars too. So I started
Okay.
buying the Jello cups, and I tell my kids, like you have 2 or 3 cups of Jello. If you screw up your Jello, like if you fracture it or whatever, you're done. It's a wrap. But
Yeah.
the Jello cup,
And
they work out great. And when
wow.
they're done, they but they only come in certain colors, like yellow or orange or red. And actually, one of my students gave me the idea of adding some food coloring to the syrup, so that we could see it better in the Jello.
Yes. Yes.
So
I love that.
So we
Man,
added.
how has no one shared this with me before? This is 10 years in. This is awesome. I never, like, literally never even thought of using the Jello cups. And then I see Haley's got a great idea that she buys the gelatin packs and makes the kids make the Jello.
No, I buy the little cups that's already
So
pre-made,
smart.
$2 or $3, and it's great.
Perfect.
And the kids also love the civil too. I think they get into it because the designs are sometimes pretty creative, but then at the end, it's kind of a contest: who's the longest, who's the strongest, who's can hold the most weight. So like we test them out until they pretty much break.
Yeah. I think the ones that kids tend to like most are the ones that have competition type aspects to it, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Look at that. I just like learned 2 cool new ways to make petroleum still really cool, but less work for the teacher. So, all right. Kim, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, I love that everyone else shares the Jello hate. That was going to be my least favorite too. That and the environmental engineering, because that one's messy as well. But for favorites, I also like the mechanical and the civil because it's harder than they think it's going to be at first, which is really fun to see them, especially the conveyor belt, like when they do that first crank and it doesn't move the belt at all. But I wanted to share that I also do a lot of the like FLIR challenges or the Science Buddy ones as like time filler especially if you're a full year for the course. And one that we do that I paired with the drafting unit is a cardboard chair construction. So they have to like build out a full-size chair that they can like sit in. And that hands down is always their favorite at the end of the year when I ask. Because I think it's such a grand scale and they're like shocked when they can sit in it or our like CTE director can sit in it. So if you're looking for any like time fillers or extra projects, that's a good place to go look.
Yeah, I think that one's also cool because I think Ben Franklin did them too, and y'all did them, and then you like have them out in the hall on like open house night and stuff. So then when the like incoming 8th graders who are touring your school or when the parents are coming to visit the classrooms, like kind of doing it early, then you have it kind of on display for the rest of the year, and it can be a real eye grabber. And get the kid be like, oh, I can sit on this chair, like what, so yeah, sure. Sport, I see you've got your hand raised.
I think one of my favorites, and it ends up being the kids' favorite too, is the biomedical, the building of the hand. Because when I say, hey guys, we're gonna make a mechanical hand, and they're like, what? And I was like, yeah, with only cardboard. So it's real interesting to watch them because a lot of them will just Google to see how you're supposed to do it. And then they try to implement it and they're like, well, why aren't my fingers bending? And I'm like, well, because you're running the straw where your joint needs to be. So it helps them with that anatomy. And I have a lot of sophomores in the class. So it pairs up with biology real nice. For least favorite, definitely environmentalist top of the list just because it is messy. It's such a big cleanup. We always do it outside just in case. But I find the kids don't care for the construction management one, so I'm looking into finding something with a little bit more oomph to it that's going to grab their attention. Because when you're building and hey, these fun things in competition, and then we move into that, it's kind of like womp womp.
Yeah, no, so that's a really interesting thing. So as I am running this summer training for now, I like the 10th time. I was kind of trying to look a little bit more intentionally at the projects, and what I've really come to determine, and this kind of goes into lab reports, and this has been feedback over the years. And I see Aaron on the call. Yeah, I see Aaron. So I might poke on him for a second, but or maybe it was Matt, I can't remember, hold on, but is we really have 3 different types of projects. We have building projects, so civil, mechanical, and biomedical, or just like kind of building projects with string and glue and straw and cardboard and all those things. Then we have like process type projects. So that would be construction management, industrial, and chemical. And then we have kind of like experiment type projects. So petroleum, environmental, electrical, and computer science. Those are electrical and computer science. I can't really figure out if they're more experiment or procedural. It's a little mix of both, but there's really, but it's more of like, try this, test it, and like, let's summarize your results, as opposed to building maybe like one final project, right? So civil, mechanical, biomedical, you're kind of building towards this one final goal. The procedural ones, chemical, industrial, and construction management, again, it's like doing something, doing it again, creating a process flow diagram, creating that third leg chart, doing the RFIs, right? So it's kind of a little bit more procedural. And then the experiment type, there's no like, it's just much more like, try these different things and document the results and see which one worked better. And so on that, we've had just a single lab report rubric, but sometimes the feedback is like this rubric really doesn't fit some of these projects. Like there's not really a testing and an iteration piece when it's just a little bit more like experiment based or procedural based. And so I'm investigating and toying with the idea of having like 3 types of rubrics for the lab reports that would maybe be a little bit more specific. And Erin, if you're listening, and are you the one who had like the targeted things that you were like specifically looking for on each lab report, or was that Matt? Can't remember. I came and visited a classroom. I have someone in Ascension. But it was kind of like, yes, here's your lab report rubric, right? And it says you have to, brainstorm and iterate, or
Yeah, I don't think it was me. I'm sorry to interrupt. I was just trying to figure
That's
out
all right.
how to figure it out, but
All right, must have
I
been
don't
Matt.
think it was me.
Matt's on the call though. Matt,
Yeah.
was it you?
My lab reports are very specific of what I want them to do. So looking at your rubric, I just tried making it laid out a little easier for them to submit stuff.
Yeah.
So I
But
do.
you have you've kind of changed the point values as well, and kind of like modified it
'cause-
since you're non-DE.
Correct. And our school at one point didn't allow us to do anything less than 100 points.
Yeah.
And so doing it at 35 points just didn't fit. So I had to make it fit to our school.
Yeah.
So yeah, I
Yeah,
did
which
change a lot of that.
a good point for dual enrollment. Like if you are dual enrollment, you do have to stick to the 35 points, but if your high school grade needs to be 100, like you can scale it up from that. But so then maybe was it Matt Atkinson who had, I think you had specific things that you were looking for. So anyway, I've been toying with the idea. So for my veteran teachers, how do y'all feel about having 3 types of lab report rubrics versus like just one that's consistent for us?
I definitely like the idea of having 3 different ones, because we were having trouble fitting in. Like everybody would always ask, how do I do this, like iterations and stuff, whenever we're not really doing anything over and over. So I actually really like the idea of 3 rubrics.
Okay.
Same, like for electrical, I think was the biggest one where I ran into an issue of like, we didn't do any brainstorming. Like it's just follow the instructions.
Right. Yeah, because it's much more like direct instruction based.
So
Yeah.
for brainstorming for that one, I had the kids play around in Tinkercad with.
I like that idea.
Yeah, because it's all digital, and it was very easy, and they could definitely like without giving them a whole lot of help, they could try to arrange the circuits, and they could easily see what worked and what didn't before they went into like actually building with the physical Arduinos.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I had some kids who
the
found
changing
it.
of like the resistor size, and kind
Yeah.
of playing with that a little bit. So Yeah, what I don't want an individual rubric for each lab report, because I think one of the important pieces of the class is like consistency, and the kids always know exactly what to expect, and there is like a certain level. So even though we would have like 3 rubrics, they would be very similar. It's just, instead it would still be called maybe like brainstorming and iterations or research or whatever, but it would be a little bit more aligned to like a procedural based thing, and maybe like the testing and iterations would have different criteria. I haven't fully fleshed it out, which is why it's not done, and I kind of wanted to get everyone's input to see if that was something that
But
would
what you said
valid.
about having the 3 different types of projects, the one that actually builds a product, the one that tests and experiment, like the 3 different ones, I've never actually expressed that to the class, that there's
Yeah.
3 different ways we're going to be doing projects. And I think having the 3 different rubrics and us emphasizing the differences in how those thought processes and how we carry out the engineering process in different ways, I think that's really beneficial.
Yeah, I mean, to be perfectly honest, I also have never formally categorized them. I've gotten this feedback from teachers that like the rubrics just don't always align to all of the projects. And so I was taking some time to think about that. I was like, okay, well, why doesn't it? Like, why does this one rubric not work for all of these projects? And that's when I was kind of starting to group them and categorize them. Okay, what do these have in common? What do these have in common? And then I was like, oh, well, we kind of have 3 different types of projects. So it seems like we've got some positive vibes towards having maybe even just 2 rubrics, like one for builds and then one for more like processy type ones. But
And
what I
that's what
definitely don't want is like individual rubrics that are vastly different for each project. Yeah, Jean.
what I was gonna add is listening, I didn't realize but I do give that specification to the students of like with the construction management. I do talk to them about the fact that this is more of a process project, because that's what construction management is about the process. And for a long time, I had, well, for almost 2 years, I had a building being built right outside my room that I could kind of talk about and align with and stuff like that as we went through it. But I think if the rubrics, it's just thought of in terms of this is the focus of this rubric is that we're looking at the process part, or the focus of this rubric is the total engineering design from brainstorm, concept creation. Because I know with my students for the construction management, that happens to be one of those projects that from year to year, as my students who have advanced on into the other classes come back, they see a connects box out and they're like, ooh, are we on construction management? And I'm like, yeah. And I'll get, oh, how many RFIs, like what's the record this year? Because that one has been such a unique process where the students have gotten a lot out of it, because it really focuses on how are you going to get your point across to other people so that they can build your product, but you also don't want to have to write for days everything out. Yet so it really gets into a lot of specifics and stuff like that back and forth. I think the record I had was 25
RFIs.
25 RFIs, and it was legit. They weren't being like nitpicky on wording and stuff. It was like, but I also allow with that project, I allow them to have a few more pieces, because then the design does get quite complex. And so then they really have to look at how they're going to try to get that across. And then, yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that so much. So, okay, so it seems like everyone kind of even if you haven't been formally calling them different types, you've maybe been adjusting the rubrics or guiding the students towards like what should be included in those particular sections when they're writing their lab reports or giving their presentations. So if you've been doing that already and you want to shoot me an email with like, here are the things that I would maybe consider, I would love that. And then what I will do is before the end of July, I'll try to have 3 kind of separate rubrics for the different types of projects that I'll be able to share out with you guys to use instead of just the one. So it won't really change anything that you're doing. It won't change anything fundamental, right? It'll just be a slightly different verbiage that'll help guide the kids. And then, of course, I will have to update all of the links to all of the things, which I'm sure there will be some that will be broken and some that will not match up. So y'all are going to be responsible for helping me catch all of those during the school year. As you go through the teacher notes and it says like, use the process lab report and the old generic lab report is linked. So there'll be a little bit of finagling there. Yeah, and then also, I guess that will also mean that the presentation rubric will also be updated since that one also follows the kind of brainstorm prototype language on the rubric for that. So I will work on what that looks like. But if you have thoughts or contributions to that, I would love to have it, and then we'll try to have that ready to go before the start of the school year. Okay, let's see. I had one more question and now I've completely forgotten it as we got off on lab reports. Does anyone else want to share a favorite or least favorite project? All right, I'm going to pick specifically on my teachers who taught this class for the first time last year. Okay, so if it was your first time teaching it last year, what is your number one like takeaway or like thing that you'll do differently this year? Will you do your grouping differently? Will you do your supplies differently? Will you, did you recruit students differently this year? If you had that option at your school. So what is like the one takeaway that you're going to do differently for my teachers teaching this for the first time last year?
I'll start. I taught it for the first time.
All right, go ahead, Stephanie.
I would definitely do materials different. I tried doing, like brainstorm, show me what you're going to do. And I need a better method for that. Because like once they see them, then they want to brainstorm with their hands,
Yeah.
And then grouping. I had a lot of trouble. I had several students who like didn't want to work with anybody, and it made it really hard. And I tried to very kindly to suggest to them, hey, all of the engineering courses are going to require some group work, like.
Yeah. I think that's important too, because a lot of times the kids who are in these classes sometimes do have special needs or IEPs where like, might be on the spectrum and like group work is just really hard. And then other kids just don't want to be in groups either. So you kind of got both ends of that. And it is like walking a tightrope, right? To like figure out the right balance and to just like not just put those kids in a group by themselves, because that's really not beneficial to them. But trying to find a solution that works while still like respecting their IEP and just, yeah, it's a tricky balance.
Well, the thing too is these kids are going to go in the real world. And what I try to explain to them in the very beginning about groups is that if you're going to be an engineer, you have to, every project's different engineers. You may have Jacobs over here, MMR over here, Exxon Refinery, Exxon Chemical. If there's a job there, they both work on it. And you have to get along with different participants and learn each other's good traits and how to get along with people. That's just part of being an engineer. It's not just designing, it's being a part of a team.
Yeah, I mean, it's no matter if you're an engineer or not, it's a really critical skill. So, the temptation is to say like, you want to work by yourself, you're a difficult kid, like go ahead, just work by yourself. And I think that, the goal should be like, okay, I'll accommodate you this time. This one time you're going to work on it by yourself, right? But the next time, I need you to work in a group. Or, hey, I know you really want to work by yourself. What if you work with this group, but you can build your own separate prosthetic hand, but y'all can come together for the lab report? Or, and just kind of like coach them and guide them towards like eventual, full group participation. So you can stair step it if you need to. We don't want a kid to, the fun part is working on the project by yourself. The crappy part is working on a lab report or a presentation by yourself. So like, usually the kids don't want to write the lab report by themselves. They want to build the project by themselves. So, just it is definitely hard. It's hard if you've got mixed grades. You've got freshmen and sophomores and juniors and seniors in there. You've got, I think Sports said, at her school, it's just kind of a dumping ground. It's like, it just fits your schedule. So there, a lot of it goes into it too, of like, if the kids have chosen to be there or if they've just been put in the class. So lots of different struggles there. So yeah, so figuring out your grouping, and the annoying part as the teacher is like, your kids change from year to year. So what grouping strategies worked one year might not work the next year. So it's always a challenge. So all right, let's see.
I did.
Oops, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I had just done all of my groups randomly. Like I found some random group generator online. And I did run into the issue you were talking about of like sometimes kids are just gonna do the entire project by themselves and then leave the rest of the group to only do the lab report. And so something I tried towards the end that I think helped, but I still need to refine is like after the brainstorm phase, before they get the materials, I would have the students write down all the tasks they can think of for the project. And like, for example, working on the brainstorm section, working on gluing the string to the cardboard or whatever, working on the reflections questions. And so that way they have like this task list and they can divide it up, and they have to show me like, this person is working on these sections, and they can discuss who's working on what as a group. I think that worked out better, as well as having like when I did senior design at LSU, we had like each section had a written by I guess author name. And I included that for my rubric, my lab reports as well, because I also ran into an issue where some kids wrote literally nothing. And it just said revised by group number 3. And so having them divided up before they start on the project seemed to help at least a little.
The other
What
thing,
I really like, well,
the
what I
other-
really like, hold on, Cynthia. What I really
Okay.
like about that is that the kids are coming up with the list of things that need to be done. It's easy as you for the teacher to say, okay, you're in charge of the introduction, you're in charge of the research, you're in charge of, but having the kids come up with a list and then assigning it to themselves and taking that ownership themselves, I think will make like huge difference. So, all right, go ahead, Cynthia.
Also to add to that, in there, sometimes when that happens and it's a big process, I may decide for them to do, tell me on their lab report, who did what in there. So you have the version of 3 or 4 people saying who did what and not the same thing. Or you see what I'm saying? And this is for a grade. So you have to participate, and it's not just on one portion of it. So,
Right.
and then you also have, where you evaluate your team members. That's another thing.
Yeah, so there is a peer evaluation component. And I think, we haven't really talked about that a whole lot, but sometimes you'll get in a situation where like everyone gives everyone 10s, or like everyone gives kids 0s, and so it's, you have to monitor that a little bit and maybe provide some guidance on how to appropriately deduct points from the peer eval, if the person, and then, if they're, I think it's 5 criteria with 2 points each, and if they're giving below a 2, they have to say why, like what component, which maybe is de-incentivizing taking points off, right? Maybe they're like, oh, it's too much work to say why I'm taking points off, so everyone just gets a 10.
Well, the other thing I do is I tell them that I'm grading you also, and y'all, whoever's grading you should be almost within the same, a little error from me. It
Yeah.
can't be all 10s or 5s or whatever. You see what I'm saying? It has to be appropriately.
Yeah.
So,
All right. Okay, yeah, go ahead, Miranda.
So to help with like the making sure that the kids, like every kid is participating. So unfortunately, I have one day where I'm not at our engineering site. So it's a very weird schedule. But in order to not just like let that time go by with them not doing anything in the class, I've like developed like design exit tickets for each of the units, and in like it has to it kind of goes through the engineering design process, but when they get into like the actual building, they have to specifically state evidence of what they are personally providing to the project. Like, oh, okay, well, like in the conveyor, like I worked on the belt, and like I had trouble tensioning the belt, so and just it kind of gives them a little more responsibility. They can't just sit there and do nothing, because in the end they know they're going to be held accountable, and they're going to have to write about that specifically individually for them. And it's like it's on paper, so they can't just Google it. Like it's a no Chromebook type situation where you have to draw on your experience of what you personally were doing in class that week.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And I see some stuff rolling into the chat as well. So, having popsicle sticks where you write like one person you want to work with and one person you don't want to work with. I use that all the time, because then it's like, you can make sure you avoid some maybe catastrophe.
Add one thing, Vanessa.
Yeah, go ahead, Valerie.
I was just gonna say that I normally randomize the initial group, and I try to do groups of 3s, and I pick the groups every single project. Like I may let them pick the last group, but other than that, because they'll just pick their friends. And if I have like a group of 3, I'll have one. I do like this clockwise and counterclockwise rotation of the groups. So like one person in every group is always rotating clockwise to the next group, and one person is always rotating counterclockwise to the next group for the next projects, if that makes sense. And one person is staying throughout the whole thing. And also with the work, I kind of let the kids work it out on their own. Some kids prefer just to write the lab report, and some kids prefer just to do the project. Some kids are designated as notebook recorders. So like, and I kind of let them work it out on their own.
Yeah, and that's definitely a strategy. I would just, make sure to encourage that at least at some point during the school year, everyone does all the different roles. And, if that's how it's working in your class, and everyone's happy, there's certainly some benefit to that as well. But we would, definitely want the kids to all have the opportunity to experience each part of the project. But it could be that like on this particular project, like someone is taking the lead on the engineering notebook, or taking the lead on the lab report. Or doing the project. And I think, I see in the chat one of the comments about like that shared spaces Google Docs. So if your school is a Google school, or probably all the platforms have it now, but you can see who actually typed each thing. And so if you do have that type of platform, you have the group leader who's going to start the document for the lab report, share it with the group members, and they all have to type on that document, and it has to be from their account, so that then you can actually go in and see who typed which part. I see some other comments about like on the peer evaluation, basically the kids have to peer evaluate themselves and talk about like what they contributed during the project. Someone took off and said, oh, even if you have max scores, you still have to give a justification for the score. So again, all of these are slight modifications to the peer evaluation style and formatting, but we want to, there is that 10-point peer evaluation component, and it is really important when we're working in groups. So lots of different strategies for sure. So any of my first year teachers from last year have something else to share about something they would do differently this coming school year? Raven, can I pick on you? Because I know you had a lot of preps and a lot of things to do.
Sure, that's fine.
Thanks.
I don't know. I just feel like, you go in with a plan. And, the kids, you set your expectations. The kids know your expectations. But then, like, in the middle of the school year, they get kind of rowdy. So I guess more classroom management, because now they're familiar with you. They know how you are. They know what you will allow, what you won't. So I would say for me, it'll be more classroom management towards the middle of the school year.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. I mean, the class is very cyclical, right? Like I feel like at the beginning of the year, it's like everyone's trying to figure it out, especially like with presentations, they'll be like a little bit nervous. Then like in the middle of the year, they're like, I got this, like I know what's coming, or lab reports, and everyone gets like either complacent and or rowdy, right? It's like, I'm
Yes.
like not paying attention anymore. I know what to expect. And that's one of the challenges or dangers with having such consistency in the class, right? Is like once the kids know what to expect, then they feel like they can take the foot off the gas. But I think that it's more of a strength than a weakness. And so, yeah, trying to keep them, on track and to make sure that they're not getting that rowdy complacentness in the middle. And I think that that's, we always talk for the projects that like there's really no order in which to do them. But now that I've got this mental framing around like hands-on versus process versus experiment type projects, I might try to come up with some sort, I would maybe say like do a 1, 2, 3, right? So do a hands-on, do a process, do an experiment, do a hands-on, do a process, do an experiment. And then that way it's, they're not getting 3 hands-on projects. Like you don't do biomedical, civil, and mechanical all in a row where they're like, wow, this is really cool. And then you end up like with some of the more process ones at the end, which are maybe a little bit more boring compared to building a project, or are a little bit, more tedious or whatnot, which I mean, they're still valuable projects. And I don't want to say like industrial is my baby and I love that project, but it's not for everyone. It's not for everyone. And I mean, who doesn't love to build a bridge? That is, building the bridge and the catapult are always the two like hands down winners of the projects. As far when I ask the students, and obviously they like to build. But so I think that maybe having a more intentional flow with these categorization types might be helpful in distributing how you do the projects. So
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
At one point they were like, "Why we did all the fun projects first, and then now we doing all these boring projects?" I'm like, guys, I'll try to do better next year. This is my first year.
Yeah, well, and I mean, truly, this is year 10, and I'm just now like putting these categorizations of types of projects together. So, yeah. All right. Any other of my first year people have something they want to add of something you would do differently? Edie, I can't hear you. Oh no. Can everyone else hear her, or is it just me? No, no one can hear you. Okay. Well, do you want to put it in the chat? Okay. I was wondering why we hadn't heard from you. You usually have a lot of great knowledge to share. All right, cool. Well, Devin, yep, I'm trying to go through all my people. Go ahead, Devin.
Yeah, just a few things. Most everyone covered all of the, I guess, challenges and the things that we like. I wanted to add that I like the fact, as a biology teacher, I like the fact that I was dealing with students that were coming in, that were enthusiastic and not loathing to be in my classroom. So that was very pleasant and kept some wind in my sails, let's say. But as far as the course, the amount of grades was a little bit to get used to at first, but I think it became a positive because it set expectations for the class of what would happen each unit and the routines that we had to go through. As far as groups, I struggle with groups already, so I knew that would be a problem for me. But the peer evaluations and the work ethic, I think, really helped me kind of. They knew that I had ultimate power to kind of edit their score if I thought that they were, coming from, hey, this is a good grade for my buddy type of thing. Materials, I have to cut down on some waste for materials, but that's on me. And then I also wanted to thank you for providing some Spanish resources, Spanish language resources to support my ESL students. So that was very welcome. So that's pretty much all I wanted to say.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. So yeah, so I think I only had like first semester stuff though. So I am working on second semester stuff. I think it didn't have all of the disciplines in there, but yeah. Awesome. All right. Any other people want to share? I think that's everyone. I might be missing somebody. Okay. Perfect. So do any of my long timers have any closing thoughts or words of wisdom to share before we're going to take a short break and then go to dual enrollment? So anyone else want to have any closing thoughts about the class?
Yeah, I have. I give my students a feedback form at the end of the year, and I modify the classes based on their feedback. This year, one of the feedback form was they didn't think that ethics was part of engineering, and I realized that the first part of the course is about the culture of engineering, and the second part of the course is about the practice of engineering. So next year, I will be talking about the culture of engineering to emphasize that ethics is definitely a part of it.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So those first 3 units that we do, the ethics, teamwork, communication, work ethic at the beginning, right? We do like dedicated units for them at the beginning, but it is really important to bring those back up, like, throughout the projects, and throughout the discipline. So if you can sneak in the words ethics, safety, at every unit, it's definitely important. And also, I love what Bob does. He always sends me his anonymized results of those feedbacks, and also has pointed out numerous errors in our quizzes. So I really appreciate that. It's and it's not necessarily errors, but it's just like weird wording or like it's not really getting to what we're looking for. So I can't overemphasize this enough that like this is a living, breathing project in class, and we always really value y'all's feedback and input to try to make it better, and to call us out if something like doesn't make sense, if a link is broken, if you have a cool resource that you developed that you wouldn't mind sharing with the rest of the teachers. Like all of those things are really important to the success of the class and to keeping it a relevant class. So all right. Well, cool. If there aren't any other thoughts, we'll go ahead and wrap this up and come back at 10 o'clock if you are dual enrollment. If you are not dual enrollment, then you are